I purposefully ruined my cousin and ex's wedding, and it's brought me a lot of happiness. New update 4 years later. I once looked up to my cousin. I thought he was a great guy, and we were close, like brothers. I was also dating a girl. I was deeply in love with her and planned to marry her someday, and I thought my life was perfect. One day, I came home early because a colleague offered to cover my shift. I was pretty tired, so I accepted. I went home, and arriving home, I found them in my bed, having sex. Both of them were shocked, to say the least, and I told them I wanted them gone by the time I got back, and I left the house. They were gone by the time I did get back, but she left me a note telling me she was sorry and to call her when I'd calmed down. But I didn't call her. I texted her saying that I'd gather her things and drop them off at my cousin's in a few days, and that she's staying with him now, not me. And I followed through with that. It took me about a week to transfer everything, both of them trying to apologize, but I didn't have anything nice to say to them, so I said nothing. I just knocked the door, handed the bags to whoever answered before leaving. My cousin called me multiple times trying to apologize, but I refused to accept it. And 3 years have passed since then. I went no contact with them. I didn't bring it up to the rest of my family or any of their friends. I'm not sure why, I just didn't. I got a call from a number I didn't recognize, so I answered it. It was my cousin. He sounded really happy and was acting like he hadn't destroyed my life. He explained that he and my ex were getting married, and he wanted me to be his best man. I was so angry that he had the utter gall to act like nothing was wrong, and I lost my temper. I yelled at him, called him names before hanging up. He sent me a text telling me the offer still stood, and if I didn't want to be his best man, then he simply just wouldn't have one. A few days passed by, and I had an idea, though. I texted him back, and I apologized. I sent a paragraph of bullcrap saying I was still angry, but this could be an opportunity for the three of us to heal and move past it. He was overjoyed and said he'd pay for everything, and he'd help me pick out a suit if I wanted, which I accepted because I sure as crap wasn't going to spend any money on his stupid wedding if I could help it. And so the wedding day came. I had spent the week prior writing a speech, putting all the negative feelings that had bottled up over the years into words on paper. The wedding itself was pretty good. I'm sure one of them has some nice well-paying job or something because they've spent a decent bit of money on this wedding from how nice it was. Our entire family was there, as was a decent chunk of my ex's family. Eventually, though, the time for my speech came, and I just remember feeling really nervous as it built up to it, and my voice kept faltering when I was reading it out, but I didn't, and still don't care. At least I got it out, and I explained what these two horrible people had done to me. I called them the worst names I could think of, and wished them the worst. Then I left. I was expecting some kind of dramatic moment from all the guests, gasps of shock and all that, but there was none of that. Everyone was silent. On my way home, I got a call from my mother angrily telling me that I'd ruined the wedding, and both of them were so upset, and she asked me why I'd do this. I told her that they deserved it for what they did to me, and everything I said in the speech was true. She kept defending them, so I swore at her, and I hung up. Since then, I've gotten several calls and text messages from others in mine and my ex's family angry I ruined the wedding. I've also received a few text messages from people who were there being supportive and telling me they were there if I needed to talk. I'm not sure if I feel better having done this, but it did bring me great catharsis when people were telling me the wedding was ruined. At least now, they've felt at the very least a fraction of what they've made me feel. Alright, so just a little edit to address some common questions. As far as I'm aware, the rest of the family wasn't aware of her cheating on me. They likely knew we were dating at some point, then we weren't. I've learned from previous stuff that I can't rely on my family for any kind of support, so I've been on low contact with them since I moved out of my parents' house, which is why I didn't mention this to anyone in my family. Then, a lot of people are also asking for the speech transcript. I wrote it in a Google Doc and read it out from my phone. The delivery was kinda lackluster. I sounded like I was going to cry and tripped over my words, but I managed to read it all out. It isn't verbatim what I said, but it's very close as I was reading from this as a general script. But here it is. Hello everyone. I'm not very good at public speaking, so apologies in advance. It's an honor to be at this wedding, and an even greater honor to be the best man. I was shocked that I was even invited at all, since the last time I had spoken to the bride and groom was when I had found out that they had been effing in my own bed. Diane was my partner at the time, you see, but I don't think she got the memo that when you're dating someone new, you don't F their cousin in your partner's own bed. And it wasn't like Dave didn't know we were dating either. Who knows how long that slimy C word was effing her behind my back? Weeks? Months? For those unaware, Diane and I had been dating for 2 years. I loved her with all my heart and was actually saving up to get a proposal ring. Maybe if Diane wasn't such an S-word, Dave would be giving this speech instead, and I wouldn't have been struggling with mental health for 3 years. Anyway, I've heard 50% of marriages end in divorce, and I hope yours is a messy one. From the bottom of my heart, F you both. You ruined my life, and I will never forgive either of you. Then, in the comments section, one user said, "Well, I bet you'll never be able to hear from the ex or the cousin again. How dare they think that you would just get over it for their comfort and pleasure? Did your mother have any idea that they had cheated on you? And wear that suit with pride, OP. I hope it was really expensive." Then OP replied and said, "Well, I'm not sure if she knew. I'd assume she didn't, as I hadn't told her, but I did say in my speech that I found the two of them in my bed together, obviously with much more graphic language, and I'm not sure about the exact price of the suit. I don't know, but it wasn't cheap. It was around 300 pounds, I think, but I'm keeping it as a souvenir." Then user 2 commented and said, "If that's true, you're an effing boss. That's a lesson to anyone who thinks they can do that to you and get away with it. Nobody gave an F that they stabbed you in the back, but when you paid them the favor, suddenly they care? To me, this is just a nice filter for you. Keep those who supported you and get rid of the rest except your mom. I don't blame the girl as much as your cousin. Anyone can fall in love with a twat, and there's another fish in the sea. But when the stabbing comes from your own blood, oh, that's indescribable." Then OP replied and said, "Oh, I intend to get rid of everyone, including my mother. The fact that she's siding with her brother's son over her own in all of this tells me that she doesn't love me, so I'll return the favor." Then user 3 commented and said, "If I'm reading this correctly, it is completely plausible that nobody but you three knew what happened, and he probably got some pressure from the family along the lines of, you know what would be really nice? If your cousin you haven't seen in years would be your best man." They couldn't tell them it was a bad idea, and you showed them why it was a bad idea. And then OP said, "That's actually a very good theory. Probably not my mom who pressured him, but my aunt, my cousin's mom, would probably do that. Maybe some of her friends and family who were present as well. My aunt's side of the family, we're not blood related. I'm blood related to my cousin through my mom and his dad. They quite like me, and most of the people reaching out to me in support were from her section of the family. But I don't know for sure. I'm genuinely surprised that nobody seemed to know why we stopped talking, and why they didn't know why my ex and I broke up." So, to throw in my 2 cents here before we get to the next section, first off, I am totally on OP's side, okay? First off, your girl betrayed you, then your cousin betrayed you. You got stabbed in the back and then the front at the same time. You got impaled twice. You got spit roasted, impaled of betrayal, the spit roasting of betrayal. Let me calm down, but as for OP saying at the end, I'm not sure why they didn't know why my ex and I broke up. It might be because you didn't tell them. Probably because she's like, oh, I could get away with it and spin the narrative, so who knows what she and or the cousin told everyone. But I'm willing to bet she didn't say, oh, we cheated, like obviously, but I don't know. And obviously OP wasn't keen on contacting or reaching out to the family, as they said, but still, I mean, that part seems pretty obvious. But again, I'm still on OP's side, but let's see what happens now. Next update. Hey everybody, it's been a while. A lot has happened. I haven't logged in on my account other than to look at any messages I've gotten whenever I see the notifications in my email. It has helped though, and it's good to know that people still think about me all this time after reading words on a screen. Hell, the most recent private message I got was 4 hours ago as of typing this, and the most recent notification on my post was 10 minutes ago. I haven't responded to any because I don't really know how to begin doing so. I'd feel bad just giving a short thank you, and I'm not really creative enough to come up with over 20 good responses, but I do greatly appreciate the supportive words though. Now, some stuff has happened since the whole mess that was my cousin's wedding. My mom tried to talk to me and said she saw the post I'd made. I pushed her away for a few days before finally speaking to her. I'm struggling to find the words to describe how things worked out between us. The easiest way to explain it is that we agreed to disagree on whether what I had done was correct. I got a mix of messages from those who were present at the wedding, some supportive, some telling me off, but I was struggling a lot though. I've just gone back to simply functioning like I was before the wedding after I came down from getting my own back. But I don't at all regret what I did, and I still feel satisfied that I got payback. I was making plans to take my own life about a month after the wedding. I hadn't told anyone for obvious reasons, but my mom, uncle, and cousin, same cousins whose wedding I ruined, came to me and told me that they'd pay for a private counselor since the mental health department of the NHS is under-equipped, to say the least. And so I went to therapy, found a counselor who was very helpful. He taught me a lot. I got diagnosed with PTSD caused by the discovery of the affair. He's been a big help though, and has encouraged me to give casual dating a try to build confidence in myself and get used to rejection as a normal part of life. So I signed up for a few dating sites, and although I'm avoiding Tinder like the plague, my counselor specifically suggested I stay away from Tinder as far as I possibly can. I've not been very successful in that avenue, but it's pretty much in line with what I was expecting. I've talked to a few people and even got a date scheduled, but she stood me up and ghosted me, which hurt. Overall, I'm doing good though. Much better. I don't have wanting to self-unalive thoughts very often anymore, and whenever I'm feeling especially crappy, I like to open up Reddit and read your supportive messages. That's all for now though. I'll probably start using this account on a more regular basis, so you may see more of me. Update number 2. Hey friends, I'm still getting DMs asking for updates and the like, and honestly, I'm still baffled that people care enough to ask me. I do read your DMs though. I've not responded to any because it's a little overwhelming. I've had over 70 people DM me now, all but 2 of whom were sending me messages of love and support, and I really appreciate it, and I'm sorry for not responding. Like I said, it's just overwhelming. I might go through and respond someday, but for now I just open up my Reddit and read the messages whenever I'm feeling down or just struggling to think positively. It really helps. But anyway, on to the update. And that is that there's not a lot to update really. Not had much luck with the dating, so I gave up. I finally went on a date with 2 separate girls, but neither of them were my type, so I didn't arrange for a second date with either. The first constantly talked about her ex and how much of an a-hole he was. Obviously, I can relate pretty hard, but it just gave me the impression that she hadn't moved on from him. After we'd finished our date, I walked her home and she offered me to come inside and watch a movie with her. I declined and lied, saying I needed to go home and feed my cat. I don't have a cat right now, and she seemed to buy it. I felt bad for turning her down, and I hope she finds someone who will treat her well. She seemed like a sweet girl, but she's just hung up on a toxic ex. Then the second girl was just painfully boring. She constantly talked about Love Island, I'm a Celeb, and a few other shows I can't remember the name of. I faked an emergency just to get out of it because 5 minutes with this woman felt like several decades. Other than that though, no bites. And that's fine. My counselor said that if using those sites feels like a chore, then I should stop using them. And it felt like a chore, so I stopped. But there's been quite a few common theories in my DMs, so I'll respond to them here. How are you holding up? Me? I'm doing great, all things considered. I have dark thoughts from time to time, but I have no intention to act on them. My counselor is a massive help. He's taught me a lot of coping mechanisms and has helped boost my confidence from non-existent to probably a bit above average. Next. Hey, do you know that your story was shared on YouTube and TikTok? Sort of. I've seen the videos you've linked to me, which was the same TikTok video, but not the ones on YouTube or any other platforms it may have been shared to, but I'm surprised it's gotten that big to be honest. But I'm aware now because you've told me. Have you spoken with your ex at all since the wedding? Only when I've been to my cousin's house to visit with my mom, which is infrequent. I don't speak to either of them much. My mom just insists I visit him since he's paying for my therapy, but I think he's trying to somehow repair our relationships. But once I'm well enough to not need therapy anymore, I'm going no contact with all of them and I'm moving to a different city. Next question is, if you do speak to your cousin and or ex, what do they say? Well, anything that isn't related to the wedding or effing each other in my bed. They do everything in their power to avoid talking about anything even tangentially related to those things. If you have traditional questions though, feel free to ask them in the comments. I'll try to answer if I see them. Now here are some relevant comments. User 1 said, how do you know for sure that the therapist is on your side? Your cousin is paying for the therapy, so what guarantee is there that he didn't buy your therapist into manipulating you? Why are you visiting and letting your mother force you to see them? You're an adult. How do you know that this won't be held against you? Guilting you into being in their presence for paying for you. They'll make you feel like you owe them. They don't feel guilty. They just want to look good in public and say they paid for your therapy, so it's all good now. Why can't you go no contact now? You don't need a mother like that. Then OP replied and said, okay, I picked my therapist. I had a therapist before him, a lady who basically kept implying I did something to drive my ex into my cousin's arms and various other accusatory crap I wasn't impressed with. My current therapist kinda criticized me for ruining the wedding, but he didn't shame me for it. And he's actually teaching me coping mechanisms. And I'm not going no contact in case they stop paying for my therapy. And they probably will try to use it against me, but that's fine. I'll F off to another city and never see them again. Then user 2 commented and said, does your cousin expect you to have some kind of relationship with him or forgive him because he's paying for your therapy? Do you worry that he'll stop paying for your therapy if you're not well in his eyes / aren't willing to forgive him, etc.? I'm glad you've got a good counselor, but I'm worried that since it's being financed by your betrayer, that there will be some strings attached. I'm sorry for what happened to you though. I really wonder how their marriage will turn out, because if they're willing to cheat with you, they'll cheat on you. You know what they say, but that's not your concern. Yours is healing and living an awesome life. Then OP replied and said, I honestly have no clue what he wants in terms of a relationship. I'm gonna ask next time I see him, but I do worry he'll stop paying for therapy if I go no contact with him and the rest of my family. They said to me that I need to try and get better, and it took a big argument with them for me to get a new counselor, when the first one basically kept implying I did something to cause my ex ex to cheat on me. Second one was the one I'm currently with, and he's pretty impartial, no judgment, he offers criticism when it's warranted, and it's constructive, not accusatory. And then finally, user 3 commented and said, "Okay, I have some questions that I wanted to know since you made your first post. 1, is your cousin also trying to repair the relationship, or only your mom? Is he still apologizing and begging you to be friends again, or did he give up? If so, are you going to be friends with him again if he does a lot for you, etc.? And when he sees you, is he happy to see you? Is he thinking about the pain he caused you?" And then finally, OP replied and said, "He seems to be trying to repair the relationship. He seems to be happy to see me, as does my ex, but I can tell they're still uncomfortable about the situation. And I haven't really asked because I don't care, but what I think is happening is he's asking my mom to get me to see them. But I don't plan on being friends with them. Ever. You could hold a gun to my head and give me the choice between pulling the trigger or being friends with them, and I'd choose the former. As for if he thinks about the pain he's caused me, I don't really know. I haven't asked. I don't really care. If he feels bad, I hope it eats him alive." Okay, everybody, so I didn't offer my opinions after the first update because there wasn't much, but now there's been 2 updates, and I will start with something very important to me, which is Love Island is so boring. I watched it for the first time recently at a friend's place, and I was just so bored. I thought everybody was droll and gaudy, and everyone had an Instagram face. They were boring on the outside, boring on the inside. The men were not catty enough. There just wasn't enough drama. I feel like there's better formatted reality shows. Me, I'm a Love is Blind girl. I will say that, okay? And honestly, if you like Love Island, that's fine. Reality TV is about finding your own personal flavor and then sticking with it. But anyway, sorry. I'm really passionate about that. That was a recent thing. As for the story itself, I do believe that the cousin is paying for the therapy to honestly try and get in OP's good graces, to try and appear like a nice person publicly for PR purposes. Maybe there is some sort of guilt that the cousin is trying to reconcile, but I do not believe that it is entirely altruistic, the betrayer paying for the therapy. I am simply permanently opposed to whatever the cousin does. They could donate to charity, and I'd say, you know what? You're trying to relieve yourself of the guilt of betraying your cousin, so I don't care about the cousin. I don't care about the ex. I don't like him. Anyway, next update. Hello again. It's been quite a long time. A lot has happened, most of it boring life stuff that you won't be interested in. But I'd be surprised if I even reach 50 comments on this post, given how long it's been. But I've received messages as recent as a week ago, as of writing this post, asking about updates. First, I'm not in therapy anymore. I spoke with my therapist about how my family, primarily my mother, was insisting I visit my cousin and ex. I'll talk about them soon, don't worry. And he said that it would be best if I go no contact, even if it means losing access to therapy, as being made to see them could make my mental health worse, and there was a chance it could cause a development of CPTSD. So I went no contact and the therapy payment stopped, but I had managed to save up enough and canceled a few subscriptions to keep them going for about 10 months, after which I felt good enough about myself that I didn't feel like I needed therapy anymore. Then, my cousin ended up cheating on my ex. I was expecting it to go the other way around, to be honest, but there's poetic justice there, I suppose. That happened about a year ago. When I heard the news, I didn't really feel anything, though. There was a time where the news would have made me feel overjoyed, and I've been riding the high of her experiencing the same thing she did to me, but I think I've truly moved on. I just feel sorry for their kid. I said in my speech that I hoped their divorce was a messy one, and from what I've heard from family and seen on their social medias, it most certainly was a messy one. And I don't know if they're still dealing with it. I've heard divorce proceedings can take years in some cases. I don't use social media a ton. I've only got this Reddit account and a Facebook to keep in contact with non-toxic family and friends, and snoop on my cousin and ex whenever I get curious. As for me, like I said, nothing super interesting. I moved to a different city, got an alright job. It can be stressful at times, but the folks there are great, and I get on with them. It's not all sunshine and rainbows, but I haven't thought about hurting myself in a long, long time. So, at least there's that. Thank you all so much for the support over the years. I wish you all the best in your lives, whatever might be going on in them. Then, in the comments section, one user said, "Alright, somehow my algorithm gave me your first post, followed all the way to this one, and I'm really glad to hear this update. Sometimes boring is pretty dang nice, and it sounds like you had a good therapist." Halfway through reading the updates, I was getting the ick, feeling that the source, well, half of the source of your PTSD was footing the therapy bill, and your mother was inserting herself. Sounds like you disentangled quite well. And so, here's to boring for a little bit longer, and then finding a bit of joy. Maybe get the cat you told that one date you had to go home and feed. And then finally, OP replied and said, "Yeah, true. I might get a cat. I I really like the idea of having a fluff ball with some silly names like Cosmos Obliterator or something like that. Reading back on that post, I feel really bad that I didn't give that one girl still hung up on her ex a proper chance. I think I was really judgmental, and I made up my mind too soon. I think I just saw myself in her a little, and I didn't like that. And definitely hoping that I do get some kind of lucky break, but I won't hold my breath. I've survived this long so far, and I'll make it through whatever there is to come, be it boring or not. Well, folks, that's the final update. Probably, hopefully, maybe. I think I've said before in older, really sparked videos, in certain stories like this, that the best revenge is a life well lived. And it seems like OP's going through that, and that is real growth and real healing when OP learned that the the ex got cheated on and didn't even care. Felt no jubilation, didn't leap out of his chair or anything like that. That's how you know it's real. That's how you know it's moved on. And that's how you know that therapist did a dang pretty freaking good job, if I do say so myself. But I feel as if everything has been said and addressed here. I do feel bad for the kids. As for that, though, that's pretty much it, guys. Feel free to comment what you think in the comments section. We read those. But guys, we're at the end. Thank you all so much for watching, commenting, and have a good one. Bye-bye!